Personnel and Finance meeting to order. Please, I need approval of the agenda.
So moved.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next is public comment. Is there any public comment? Any public comment? Appears to be no public comment. So next up, we will have the minutes.
Minutes be approved.
Support.
All in favor? Aye. Moving on to committee items, finance report. Mr. Latham.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, committee members. We're presenting to you the June financial statements. So for the 6 month ended, our budget benchmark is 50%, makes it easy to calculate. And the actual expense level is 49.3%. Looking at the individual items, we're pretty much on track. With some exceptions, one of which we're going to deal with today, and that's the Child Care Fund. There'll be budget amendments coming on that. Basically, that's all I needed to say at this point, and be happy to answer questions.
Questions? Comments? Appears to be none.
Good.
Next up, we have the Health Department requesting a budget amendment.
I guess I'm still here. This is, as we are approaching the end of the fiscal year of the Health Department, which is September 30th, we took a look at the actual activity and are proposing amendments which are neutral. There's additional revenue of $101,000. This is due to changes in the state grant amounts from, and also some changes in some other state and federal grants. And then there's offsetting, there's a net increase in expenses to reflect the change in the activity. And the other changes really have to do with changes between departments. Between the time the Health Department budget is adopted throughout the year, the Health Department employees charge their time in accordance with where they work, and in some cases their time is different than what we budgeted, different than what was anticipated. So it kind of explains the significant differences between departments. But again, the net is $101,000. Thank you.
I'd move the budget adjustments for the Health Department.
Support. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. We have another budget item. This would be a budget float, I believe.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is in accordance with the board policy 1040. Each year we look at the salary and fringes of the larger departments, that is departments with 500,000 or more of salary and fringes, and basically we reduce them, reduce the amounts in those departments, and the idea here is that accounts for the vacancies that have occurred during the year. And we look back, come up with a percent that we use, and it's 2.5% of the salary and fringes that we pull back, and we transfer this to a contingency fund for unforeseen events. So in total, that amount for this year is $319,213.
Thank you, Jim. Questions, discussion?
Move the full board.
All in favor, moving to the full board?
Aye.
Opposed? Passes. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Latham. Up next, we have a report from Jackson Transit Authority. Anybody here? Apparently, there's nobody here from Jackson Transit Authority. Up next, we have the HR retirement and drop list. Don't see anybody on there this month. We have an HR benefit plan consulting and agent services. Crystal, you fill us in on that, please.
Good afternoon. For several years, the county has utilized professional benefits consultant services for a wide range of fairly complex employee and retiree health insurance services, which include research and analysis of fees charged by insurance companies, monitoring and ensuring that our plans comply with federal health care reform and a myriad of state mandates as well. The consultants also negotiate reduced administrative fees with our health insurance carrier and provide a whole host of vendor bidding and administrative services for the county that we are not staffed to provide. These services exceed $50,000, and we recently did a market check. We solicited bids from professional firms, including local Jackson firms. We did have 4 firms provide bids to us, and we are recommending a 5-year professional services agreement with McGraw-Wentworth.
Thank you. Discussion?
I'd move the request.
Moved and seconded. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Next up, we have friend of the court, budget amendment. Welcome.
Good afternoon. I'm here before you today to request the authorization and approve the amendment for the 2013 Friend of the Court budget. I did present that to you, so you should have that for your records. We did experience a shortfall this year, primarily due to the changes in our cooperative reimbursement program. We were short on that approximately $19,000, and that's primarily due to the cap, which I'm sure you are all aware of. Additionally, we also had some changes with our retirement benefit plan. The original Friend of the Court budget proposed an 18% of the personnel wages, when in the actual budget included 32% for the retirement wages, so that created a difference in there. Additionally, we had our on-base imaging system that needed to be included, as well as some other minor changes that needed to be made, including a Safe Havens grant that increased our revenue by $24,000. So we had a series of changes that needed to be made, and this budget amendment would reflect all the changes that are in there.
Thank you. Discussion? Questions, board? Commissioner Mahoney?
How could you make a
For the casual employee, we actually had 2 employees that were on an extended medical leave, and their services were imperative to making sure that we could do or provide services to the public. So in turn, we hired a casual employee at a reduced wage to make sure that those services could still be provided timely.
and you just didn't figure?
It was they were both for extended medical leaves, and they were unanticipated.
Thank you. Any? Commissioner Elwell?
Those same figures that Gail mentioned are the pension ones also. Is that what you were talking about, Gail? Or no? Yeah. And is that pension that you were talking about or not? There was reference in here to 18% of personnel wages versus 32% on retirement. Is that what you were just describing?
No, what I was describing there was for the casual employee that we needed. The retirement was actually the 18% that was originally figured to the 32%, because the retirement was added at the higher percentage rate after our budget was proposed.
Adam, please.
If you recall, the pension numbers came in about a week before we presented the budget last year. Maximus does the Friend of the Court budget to figure out the cooperative reimbursement part of it. So they had done that back in April, and we found the numbers out a week before. So we put in a lump sum number in the budget. What needs to happen, though, for the state to do the reimbursement correctly is it needs to be spread out in the personnel cost, actually. So it's merely a mathematical exercise. It's not an oversight, just a matter of timing.
Thank you.
Any further discussion or questions? If not, I need a motion and support to send this to the full board.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Next up, we have the DHS Child Care Fund Budget Amendment.
Right.
Welcome,
So
Charles.
I'm speaking for Jerome, too. If you have additional questions, but this is directly related to the study session topic we had on Friday, but the $400,000 request for amendment to the current fiscal year ending September 30th is to cover the increase in foster care and institutional care costs that DHS has. By doing that, you will ensure that we'll be able to make the state's deadline of a resubmitted amended child care fund budget and ensure that we recoup $200,000 of that $400,000. So that, in a nutshell, is what the motion's for.
Yes, okay. So we put 4 up front right now, we recoup 200,000 back.
200, right, 50%, yes, sir. If we, and if we don't, then we're still stuck with the full 400,000 in expense because it's a mandated expense.
Correct. Questions? Commissioner Elwell.
I'll move the request, and then I've got a couple of comments.
Okay, go ahead.
Well, Charles, I appreciate the detailed conversation on Friday at the study session about it. I mean, what I took from that study session was the hope that we can continue to minimize those costs, whether it be on the front end through the things that Jerome does or whatever the court can do. But it's unfortunate and upsets me that it's kind of an unfunded mandate, and I assume that's from the consent decree, in part anyway.
Some of the causes are from the consent decree because they've, changed some of the mechanics and the requirements of DHS. They've required an increase in the purchase of service. Although it wasn't a result of the consent decree itself, the legislature has increased the per diems that purchase of service agencies can charge from, I think it was $17 in 2005, 2006 to $37, and there's a proposal now to increase that to $40 a day. There's a lot of elements in that consent decree and also the modified consent decree, because they've modified it once or twice since over the last couple of years. In essence, from my perspective, they become unfunded mandates to the local communities because we had no say in what the state agreed to when they were sued by an outside group of attorneys because they felt that our system wasn't working. But back to your comments, David, we have and will continue to do everything we can to minimize the number of kids in care if we can do that and still maintain a safe environment for those kids at a reduced cost. But it is hard when our legislature continues to increase costs. And I'm not going to say right, wrong, or indifferent. The net effect is it increases our cost here at the local level. But back to that's something that we've always have in our purview.
Thank you.
Sure.
Commissioner Lutchka.
Part of the concern cost, or the problem there is that there's been no increase on either federal aid or state aid in so many years. I don't know. Is there any effort by your organization, the courts, or any other of those organizations to try to get some movement by either federal or state people to increase or put some cost of living or something in there?
I'm not aware of anything that a court administration, because we do have associations, anything that we do typically is through scale and efforts. I believe that they try to contain costs as much as they can. The federal side with the Title 4E, using documents that were based on incomes from 1996. I know there's been discussions at the state level with the feds, but from a local level, I don't believe, I've not had any input on that, but I think MAC could. Sure.
Further questions or discussion? Okay, we had a motion to move this forward. Did we have support? All right, all in favor, please? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Next up, we have a circuit court and position upgrade request.
Yeah, the motion before you today, to give you a little history, Christine Lammy is the current holder of that position. But over the last 5, 6, 7 years, we've reduced staff and have, taken job responsibilities and put more into that position, and just other reorgs that we've done. But we've never asked for a job study for that position, because for a period of time we were going to do that collectively as a county, but just because of budgets, that hasn't been done. And we decided that this was time, because we're not asking for more money. We've had savings in our part-time, and we anticipate more savings based on our use of legal interns and things like that but it was time to request a change. We worked with HR. They came in, did a job study. Definitely indicated that she was doing work of a grade 8 person, and subsequently her efforts have our full support. We've worked through county administration with it and led us to where we are today. So any particular questions, I'll answer to it.
Good explanation. Commissioner Elwell.
Charles, I noted really for Mike and Crystal that it has both of you supporting this request. You're both supportive of it.
Yes, that's correct. We don't take these requests lightly or decisions lightly. Frankly, there's quite a few employees who could use evaluation. As everyone knows, we continue to reduce budgets, reduce staff, but yet have the same expectation for the workload. And what we've said, at least I guess before I got here it was said, it's been said many times since I've been here, is we will look at those on an individual basis as opposed to across the board. Of course, the feeling is that there probably is a need for across the board, but there's not the funding, one, to conduct such study, because they can be tens of thousands of dollars, and then of course tens of thousands of dollars more in changes to people's wages. So we do support this at this time.
My only concern would be opening the floodgates. I mean, I'll probably support this, but I don't want to open the floodgates, and I'm curious how many of these other requests or other requests like this we've had that have either been approved or have been denied.
That was part of our concern, was are we opening the door? Frankly, the door has been open, and there have been some that we have said, no, it's not warranted, or at least to the magnitude where we'll take it and do it. There's a couple others out there I've heard about. I haven't seen them yet, but potentially you could see additional ones. And again, yeah, to some degree it does open the door. The door has been open, but this definitely publicizes it that much more.
Question, Charles.
Yes, sir.
Did the employee did come forward and request review, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yep. It's been in the works for almost a year.
Well, yeah, I think it's deserving, very, very much so. Like to say, opening the door. We only have so much money here to work with. Any other questions? Commissioner Lutchka. Commissioner Chair Shotwell.
Okay, Charles, if this has been now, I was all right with it till you just said it's been in the works for a year.
Sure.
You don't have it in the 13 budget, you don't have it in the 14 budget, but it's been in the works for a year that you've got an analysis where you're going to increase someone's salary this much?
Well, I'm going to correct. It had been sent to HR, but because of how short-staffed they are, it wasn't, there were many other important elements. Crystal and Joni weren't able to get to start what they needed to do until May or June. We finally got their recommendation it was between the 15th and the 20th of July of this year, which took it out of both year budgets. So we had no idea where it would point out at, where the request would be. We followed all of the process and procedures as required by HR. We couldn't. So bottom line, Steve, is we didn't know, one, if we would even have one, and two, the timing was post mid-year, so that's why it's here now. So there was no way to put something you didn't know into a budget request until you had the documentation and all the I's and T's were dotted.
Any further questions, Chairman?
So it wasn't like we were sitting on it. I mean, it had been turned in later part of last year, but we can't change the workflow of HR. So they did the best they could.
Further discussion? Commissioner
Does this
Elwell.
get approved here, Administrator Overton? Okay.
Goes to the full board.
That's what I meant. Okay.
Yeah, it was approximately $2,000 for the rest of this year and approximately $5,400 and change for next year.
However, that is covered by savings by using intern.
Right, we're currently in part-time for this year at 33%. We're supposed to be at 58%.
Any further discussion?
I'm going to support it here in committee, but I'll continue to think about it and ask more questions before next Tuesday. Thank you.
Thank you. Need a motion and support to send it to the full board. Oh, do we? Okay. All in favor, please vote aye. Opposed? Thank you. Let me get here. Up next, we have another circuit court item, the child care fund budget transfer.
Right, and what this is asking to move money from the chargeback line item into our residential treatment line item, which is currently $200,000. We currently have 3 juveniles in placements that were placed by the court. This was created as a outcome of our committee to reduce our Act 150s, which are the state placements, which tend to cost a lot more because of going to Maxi. So we're actually saving money. We're not asking for an increase in the budget. We're just asking to move 140 from chargeback into the residential treatment so we can recoup the $70,000 in reimbursement.
Thank you. Any discussion? We have a motion and support. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Next up, we have the Health Department. Welcome.
Thank you. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
We're here today to request your support and authorization for the creation of a full-time social worker position and eliminating a part-time 28-hour per week social worker position in our maternal infant health program. As you know, we provide services to pregnant women and infants eligible for Medicaid. They include public health nursing, social work, and nutritional counseling. We do get reimbursed by Medicaid for the services we provide. And this program, along with a number of others, make us eligible for Medicaid cost-based reimbursement from the state as well to the tune of about $250,000 to $300,000 per year, in addition to the funds that we receive through billing. So the current situation is that we have program staff that provide direct service in the program, a registered dietitian, a public health nurse, and 1.75 social worker FTEs. We have really seen an increase in the maternal infant health program, 25% caseload increase, and a 59% increase in referrals since that time. So we're really not getting to the women that we need to get to in a timely fashion, and we also are concerned about being able to sustain this program over the long term without having enough staff to really make it work effectively. So we did have a part-time social worker that resigned her position, and we're asking that this position be eliminated and that we make this a full-time social worker position in the health department. It's an extremely important program to the service in the community. I think, as most people are probably aware, 54.5% of the births at Legion's Health were Medicaid, so we have a high-risk population out there that we're trying to serve. We did also include in your packet a copy of a quasi-experimental analysis of this program, and it really does contribute positive health outcomes to the served population. The actual impact of this request is an increase in cost of $27,000, which isn't reflected in my copy, but hopefully it is in yours. That's over and above our current expenses. But ultimately, there's really a net zero impact because we will be able to bill Medicaid to cover the cost of this position. Plus, we'll probably be able to generate additional Medicaid cost-based reimbursement. So we'll maintain our productivity with this, and we do serve the most at-risk pregnant mothers and newborns in the county, and would ask for your support of our request at this point.
Thank you for the explanation. Questions? Commissioner Elwell.
The reimbursement, that'll be inclusive of fringes for this position as well?
Yes, it will.
Okay. And then secondarily, the administrator, I don't know whether or not he supports it. You do?
Yes, I do. I see the need as well as the funding source to meet that need.
Any further questions or concerns? Need a motion to send this to the full board. Moved and supported. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
Up next, we have a request from the Administrator Controller. That would be you.
Sure. Any questions, but this will be the
Third time, it's $11,400. Questions? Discussion? Commissioner Alexander.
Mr. Brown, are you planning on making any changes or amendments to those questions on the survey? Or will they stay as they were 2 years ago?
The plan is to review the list of possible questions that we can add. There's 3 questions which we can draw up our own, which we've already done for the last 2 years. But there may be other questions we could add, and we'll work with our various groups that we're working with strategically to see if, since we're already collecting the data and some of those questions are at no cost, we can add those basically for free. So we'll review them before it goes out again.
Thank you, Adam. I don't believe this has to go to the full board, but I do need a motion or request to pass. A motion and support to pass the request. Support. Thank you, Commissioner Mahoney. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Next up, we have the Administrator Controller making a request to alter the firearm policy.
Actually, this is a new policy. We have here before us 3315, and this policy, in general terms, that's what it is. It's a very broad policy that outlines, or not outlines, states that the county will allow, or I should say, follow the state statute for concealed weapons. And so really what it amounts to is our employees would be allowed to carry a weapon while working there as a citizen, not as an employee, but as a citizen, as long as they meet the state guidelines, meaning they've taken their class and registered their weapons and that sort of thing. We would expect that they would follow every nuance of the law.
Okay, thank you. Questions, discussion? Commissioner Elwell?
I'll move the policy, and then I've got a couple of comments also.
Go ahead.
I just wanted to repeat on the record what I spoke on Friday at the study session. One of my concerns was for employees that, especially potentially driving county-owned vehicles, if they have a need to lock the weapon up because of going into an exclusion zone. I have a concern with just locking it in the vehicle. My preference would be that there's some mandate or accommodation made for them to have a lockbox. Again, I personally use one. They're pretty inexpensive and secure, and I think the comments from the administrator were you didn't see a need to put it in a policy, which is fine, but you will be looking at some guidelines, and we'll give consideration at least to that at that time, but that is just an ongoing concern of mine. Thank you.
Care to address that?
Sure. As indicated, we'll be looking at a lot of different guidelines and things. We are trying to avoid creating costs for the county. We want to, we have an expectation that everyone would follow the law. Part of my thinking on this, and again, I'm working with a number of law enforcement officials who are much more versed in carrying weapons than I, but yet part of my thinking is if you know you have to go somewhere where you cannot carry your weapon, perhaps you should leave it at home or leave it in your own car. I'm not so sure I want them to leave it in the county vehicle at all, let alone provide means for them to do so. So there's much discussion to be had about that. Just as my kind of thinking, I'm just being frank about it there.
And just to clarify one point, I was not suggesting that the county buy those. I was suggesting that's on the employee if you choose to try and implement that. But, I mean, we could debate all day what you're talking about. I can see exceptions to that. But it's just a concern. I wanted to voice it, and you can give it whatever weight you want.
I'd like to weigh in here. It's in the state concealed carry responsibilities that a person has a CPL secure their weapon. So I guess if the county vehicle is a car, locked in the trunk may suffice. The lockbox, like you suggest, may suffice, or the employee chooses they could so leave it at home that day or in their own personal vehicle. But I think the onus is on the employee that wishes to exercise their right to their concealed carry. That's just my thought there. Any other questions? Commissioner Rice. Carl?
Thank you. I recognize the firearm policy is in accordance with the statutes for the state of Michigan. That's been emphasized that the onus will be in regards to the statute when it comes to carrying a concealed weapon. However, I would just like to point out that, and for the record, I'll just say that I do think it's extremely important. If this firearm policy passes, I do feel it's very important that county employees keep in mind that continued training is extremely essential to proficiency. From my perspective, anybody in the state of Michigan who's a CPL holder should be aware of the fact, cognizant of the fact that continued training again promotes proficiency and safety, and I would just very much encourage that. I also would like to mention, I've done some homework here, like I did last time. I've talked to department heads, elected officials. A little bit different feeling this time than last time. Some were still against it. Some just had various concerns. A couple of them had the same concerns that Commissioner Elwell brought up as far as securing the weapons. So I do think that's something that should be looked at. Actually, I had one department head that was very on board with this policy. So again, a little bit different than last time. I did talk to some county employees themselves, because obviously this affects our county employees, and for the majority of county employees actually wanted at least wanted the option to be able to carry if indeed they were given that option. So I'd just like to throw that out there. One, don't really need to say this, but I just thought it was kind of interesting. A couple weeks ago, I pulled in front of the county building, and I've mentioned this to some people. My wife was with me, and I said, if we both are carrying right now, we had our CPLs, I'd have to secure my weapon in the car. I said, but you could walk into the county building with me, and you could keep your weapon on. And her comment to me was 2 words: that's stupid. That pretty much said it for me right there. The public can carry. The question is, if you can carry in the public, why can't you carry in the workplace? That's the big question. So I just wanted to clarify this. I've done a lot of homework on this. I've talked to a lot of people on this. I did vote no last time, but this time I'm looking to vote yes on this issue. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Rice. Commissioner Lutchka, please.
I guess, is there going to be a procedure for establishing county-restricted venues?
Restricted, I guess, locations.
Yeah, you're referring to locations and so forth. Well, in all honesty, we're going to follow the law on that strictly. In conversations, we have talked about, for instance, for certain events, you may not want to allow someone to carry a weapon. Maybe we're in, I'd rather not say, but there's a number of them. For instance, to be frank, if I'm going to be meeting with a disciplinary board with an employee, I'd rather not they not be carrying a weapon when we come in to have that conversation. There's some events like that, clearly, that we may need to be a little more restrictive than the law.
If it's my recollection, the court system is off limits per state law inside the court building, unless you're a police officer or...
Well, not just the court building, but the youth center, I think front of the court, any office that's under the jurisdiction of the circuit court, is my recollection.
And that light, do you feel there's need to post notice at the front of the buildings?
I didn't hear what you said, Phil.
Do you believe there's notice to post, or reason to post notice at the front of the court building,
Well,
or is it already there?
To be honest with you, I don't know if there's any counties in the state that actually allow CPL holders to enter those, what could be restricted. I think it's up to the judges themselves to decide, is it not, Mike, if they're gun-free zones or not?
I believe that's correct, but I see Charles is nodding there.
That last statement was correct, David, that it is by judicial order that can keep guns out of a courthouse or front of the court or the youth detention center. I could stand here for 20 minutes and list the reasons why we wouldn't want...
No, I'm not here to suggest that it should be opened up. I'm just saying, should we make it clear to employees that potentially carry that the courts have deemed that these are all off limits? Because it could be optional. You could have, some counties that may open up some of those. And I think it's fair to make it clear which are no carry zones.
I very much agree. I would expect if the board adopts the policy that the courts would adopt a policy dealing with that.
Well, we already have that policy in effect, and it is posted in each building. So our our policy itself that's already here isn't going to change.
So you wouldn't need to amend to or include employees or anything like that? Okay, thank you.
No.
Thank you, Charles.
Welcome.
Commissioner Rice.
Just to carry on from that, I do believe, and it sounds like our administrator is going to address this, but again, from the people I've talked with in the county here, I do believe it's very important that there's education, because there's a lot of confusion on when to carry, where to carry. You have people that are not going to be CPL holders. They don't know much about firearms. There's a lot of issues there that I believe need to be addressed. We have the medical care facility. Hospitals are not included here as far as carrying. We have to determine, is the medical care facility considered a hospital, for instance. So I think we have to really make sure where we're standing on this, and really make sure that we educate not only our department heads, but make sure they educate the employees themselves.
If I may.
Commissioner Lutschke was up next.
Just since it's so recently ended, the fair, I don't know, there's an awful lot of people that come to the fair that I sure wouldn't want carrying weapons, but are we going to do things like that? I don't know.
I think that would come in under a place of entertainment that exceeds 2,500 in seating capacity, or would be excluded anyhow. But then again, we have to go by state law. And you can't restrict, I don't believe you can restrict the general public from not carrying if concealed carry was allowed there, but I don't think it is allowed. Administrator Overton.
One of the things I was going to say is on our Facebook, or not Facebook, yeah, but there too, our web page, we will include probably, like, for instance, like the executive summary of the law, as well as links to where you can go to the law, because we understand that not everyone will choose to take the class or be knowledgeable in it. This way they can easily search it, look it up, and have an understanding of it.
Rice again.
Thank you. I'd actually sent out an email to everyone, and our administrator got it as well. The information I had received was that the fairgrounds, if it's under the jurisdiction of the Michigan Department of Agriculture, you cannot carry as far as CPL. Of course, I did see people at the fair open carry, which I quite frankly think is, I'll just use the word, stupid.
Commissioner Mahoney, please.
I do believe that places that don't allow people to carry guns, they do have it posted. And it's just like with cigarette smoking and everything else. I mean, by law, you can't smoke in a restaurant, but they still have it posted that you can't smoke. And so at the hospital, it's posted that it's a no firearm as well as no smoking. So I don't think that it's offensive, or it could become costly with the amount of property that we have to post off of places where a person can't carry. But some of this is a matter of common sense, but
Well, it's also a matter of following the state law that granted you the right to carry concealed. Have a card out here, sports arena or stadium, entertainment facility that's seating capacity of 2,500 or more individuals. And I think it's fair to say our fair would fit. It's correct to say that our county fair would fit in that policy. Any further discussion? We have a motion and support. All in favor of sending this to the full board, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passed unanimously. Thank you. Next up, we have a request from the administration for an equal opportunity employment policy be put in place. It's always been the county policy, been the county's practice, but it hasn't been in our policies. Mr. Overton?
I think it frankly speaks for itself.
Okay, any discussion?
Move to approve.
Support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Passes unanimously. Thank you. Where do we go next here? Up next would be another administration request, and it'd be for workplace violence policy.
Support.
All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? This goes to the full board. Passes. Thank you. Up next, we have claims. Who wants to pay the claims?
Move the claims be allowed.
Support.
All in favor, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. We have other minutes. Anybody have any questions on any other minutes? Discussion? Okay, our September reporting schedule, that's for your viewing pleasure. Return to public comment. Any public comment? Apparently not. Committee member comment. Meeting's adjourned at